So today we have the super fun topic of taking someone who did something stupid on the internet and talking about it. Hooray for us! I guess all of our heroes go to die eventually.
Get over there! Fine, jeez.
In case you've been living under a rock, over the course of last year, J.K. Rowling basically admitted and buckled down on her belief of biological sex versus gender identity, where she believes trans people can dress how they would like, but at the end of the day, they are not the gender they identify with. This is extremely harmful in a number of ways, and the people on the internet have dissected this, and we're making memes with funny pictures of her face, and I'm sure it's all a coping mechanism. If you'd like a more thorough breakdown of what's going on, YouTube at the point is filled with the brim with coverage, and I also don't like pain, but you can look around to find what you seek. That being the original articles of what she said. There is apparently a statement where Joanne buckles down and it turns into a hot mess, and it's a good stupid people drama, but not something we'll be discussing today. Something to consider, Joanne's frank and isolating opinions on her transphobic views might be a symptom of COVID, and the lack of general isolation might be causing people to post without feedback first, leading to some stupid takes from people who should know better. I feel like Joanne might have her views challenged when she has to make some public appearances. And that might be generally awkward, for everyone, including Daniel Radcliffe. Instead, today we'll be talking about, can you still like Harry Potter without being an asshole? And how its interpretation has changed over time to mimic society's current moral standings. As well as, even though we can say we can just distance ourselves from Harry Potter, it's easier said than done if you have community ties that dictate much of your current life. And I think people are kind of forgetting about that part.
Now, how did you feel when you first heard that Rowling said something transphobic?
It really hurt, because I have a close connection to those movies. I even look like Dobby the house elf if he became a TikTok rapper. That wasn't very nice.
Part 1, Religion and Fanboys. What do religious people and fanboys have in common? Well, quite a lot, as many people have pointed out. Both are members who define their identities as members of a community, built around stories about people we worship or admire, whether it's God or Batman or Twilight Sparkle. Both are set up around iconography, like crosses or Superman's S symbols, and engaging in communal art, whether it's church or movies, and then sharing life with the people who also define their identities around story. Religion fandoms also engage in similar toxic behaviors, punishing people who don't conform to orthodoxy or their interpretation of their sacred text or comic book, and cause hostility to people in other groups. So if the behavior of religion and fandom is so similar, is the psychology of them the same? Do people become religious or fanboys for the same reasons, and do they become toxic for the same reasons? Well, yes and no. Religion and fandom have some similar psychological benefits. First, of course, is community. Humans need community, and the tightest communities tend to be around shared loves, rituals, and experiences. Both religion and fandom offer those things, and so people who are a part of those communities gain better mental health practices that comes with being a part of a community when you feel known and loved. However, this is where some differences start to kick in. The psychological benefits of religion are much higher for one's mental health than fan communities. During the 2020 pandemic, the only group of people whose mental health got better rather than worse were religious people, particularly those who regularly attended church. Also, what you believe about your God tends to matter a lot more than your beliefs about fictional characters, generally. If you believe that God is a loving and merciful God, you will gain psychologically from believing in him. If you believe he's an angry God who's always judging you, like in the Old Testament, your mental health drops believing in him.
Oh, don't grovel. One thing I can't stand is people groveling. Sorry. And don't apologize. Every time I try to talk to someone, it's sorry this and forgive me that and I'm not worthy. What are you doing now? I'm averting my eyes, O Lord. Well, don't.
This also feeds into the realm of toxicity. Religious people become toxic based on what they believe their very real God is like, but fanboys become toxic based on the degree of what they believe their fictional characters are real. Therefore, when Star Wars is turning the hero Luke into a total butthead, they're doing that to a real person. And not only a real person, but a real person that you rely on for your moral inspiration. It's a complicated relationship. Therefore, according to psychologists, the trick to avoid toxic religion is believing the right things about God. And the trick to avoiding toxic fandom is making sure you don't actually believe in all of it, or don't take it seriously. Results may vary. Part 2, the evolution of a biblical God. The evolution of our understanding of God through the influences of Jewish and Christian faiths is a long and complex story. Sounds about right. Nowhere is this more apparent than regarding the tension between a God of love and a God of wrath that we see in Hebrew and Christian scriptures and traditions. Generally speaking, prior to Judaism, the majority of religions have multiple gods, who were rather awful and tyrannical and savage, and demand sacrifice and blind obedience, or you would experience their wrath. In the case of the Mesopotamian gods where Judaism was born, they were fickle and likely to wipe you out without warning, like the weather in Mesopotamia. Judaism introduced the world to a single god greater than all the other gods, who would actually be merciful. Sounds like a rare Pokemon. He would make agreements with humanity and give out rewards and punishments if you followed or broke the rules, but also would consistently extend mercy if you violated these rules. The patriarchs like Abraham, Moses, and David, and people of Israel generally consistently violated these terms of their agreements with God, and God would still usually keep his end of the bargain and bless them and protect them. Of course, he didn't always like everyone. Sometimes he would kill or punish someone according to the agreement, but never outside of the agreement. In other words, he would sometimes be more merciful than the agreement, but never less merciful than the agreement. The other thing that made the Jewish God different is that he extended this approach to other people besides his own. He always called the Israelites to treat foreigners in the country with the same respect and dignity as one of his own people. And when he called them to go to the war with the subjugate or slaughter other people, it was with the understanding that they were acting as the agents of punishment to people who had broken agreements with him and started engaging in acts like child sacrifice. Yeah. That said, there was no denying that this god was a god of wrath, and would wipe out entire peoples and use his people as instruments of his wrath. He was just one who would also regularly engage in mercy from the wrath for long periods of time. When Jesus entered the picture, he shifted things around, but not as much as people think.
Now you listen here! He's not the Messiah! He's a very naughty boy! Now go away!
People tend to think that Jesus replaced a god of wrath with a god of mercy and love, but that's not quite true. Jesus came and spoke a lot about loving your enemies and turning the other cheek, but spent even more time talking about hell and how God was going to punish the wicked. Yay, Jesus. Jesus Christ. The one thing that appears different is what Jesus told was that he was focused on a God being the agent of wrath exclusively, while instructing his followers to not be the agent of wraths themselves. The early Christian St. Paul summed this up when he said, "Do not take revenge. Leave room for God to extend his wrath." Because of this, the early Christians were extremely nonviolent, and many of them were even pacifists, many refusing to join the army because this meant killing others. That said, even Christian writings like Romans 13, also written by Paul, endorsed the government's legitimate use of the sword to promote the good and punish the guilty. Once Christians gained power during Constantine, Christians became more comfortable with violence, at least in the cases of war. Medieval Christian writers like Augustine began to justify using force to convert people to the right Christian beliefs, which would have hundreds of years of consequences, like the Crusades and the Catholic-Protestant Wars. History is sad. Christian philosophers during the Enlightenment, like John Locke, tried to fix the problem of constant religious violence by promoting religious freedoms and governmental impartiality towards religion, which meant people were free to worship as they pleased without the government forcing them. This, combined with the economic globalism encouraged by Francis Bacon and Adam Smith, led to a Western world defined by pluralism. Pluralism tends to have this effect. Over time, sometimes a very long time, developing a theology of tolerance in religions, as has happened with Christianity, and we have also seen that with Islamic leaders in the West, as more Western countries are allowing Muslims to fully integrate. The god of love over the god of wrath has gained popularity in recent times, such as popular depictions of God like the Shack have God say, "I'm not into wrath, baby," and Pope Francis has been emphasizing this god of love and mercy with his statements of condemning the death penalty and loving remarks towards the LGBTQ community. That said, there are some pushbacks to this more loving and merciful God, as racial justice and sexual assault advocates claim that emphasizing God's mercy over justice merely allows the people to get away with more doing harm than paying no consequences. Beliefs about God are shaped both by beliefs of divine revelation and the tug of human experience. The tension between the God is love and God is wrath will probably never be totally resolved this side of eternity, because both the need for love and mercy, as well as justice and accountability, are both important parts of being human. So how does this all tie in with Harry Potter? What I think many of the other people discussing all this forget to realize is these groups and communities have big psychological benefits that people can't easily walk away from, especially if you use it in coping with trauma and other severe forms of mental health. It's like switching your church. It's complicated. That said, it is yet to be seen how Harry Potter as a franchise will age due to her comments.
Hey, you know Hagrid?
Yeah?
He's actually transgender.
What?
Yeah, he used to go by Hagrid, but now he's transgender.
Or or will realistically have any huge budget-changing consequences.
I longed for a few years ago when the worst thing she ever did were those Fantastic Beasts movies, you know? No discrimination there. Those films harmed us all equally.
But if Harry Potter as a brand does suffer some kind of financial stress, then there might actually be some repercussions to Rowling's remarks. Even so, it doesn't seem like Rowling will be particularly influenced based on her net worth. Cha-ching. So yes, you can still like Harry Potter, but remember to keep a straight head about your ethics and morality. Ethically though, it's not a bad idea to avoid the official product line, so that means either buying your Potter stuff used or artisan. Etsy is a great website for that. No, this video isn't sponsored by Etsy, but I just really like Etsy, alright?
You might like this. Hey.
Honestly, KP, I think you're giving her too much credit.
Oh hey, Mikeala, glad you can join us.
Always glad to be here, even if we aren't talking about Lumity like the email promised.
Sorry, my lesbian bat signal must be down.
Oh, trust me, I am more than happy to talk smack about TERF. Now, being a trans woman myself, I recognize that the livelihood of people like me is on the line thanks to Rowling's reach and resources. She is an extremely wealthy woman saying that trans people do not deserve to be recognized by the law. It might be one thing if she was just a nobody screeching purposely into the void that is the internet, but she isn't. Her words and actions have a direct consequence to the lives of trans people. She has donated a lot of money to the Labour Party in the UK, which has a credible transphobia problem. Conservatives in the US government have cited Harry Potter of all things in pushing back against LGBT rights. Hell, her latest book, Troubled Blood, features a villain who dresses up as a woman to murder cis women in the bathrooms. The exact kind of bigoted caricature Rowling envisions trans women being. People could say that it's just a matter of isolation and not being properly educated on the LGBT community. I disagree. There is no shortage of resources that Rowling can draw from that could educate her properly on all of this. She's simply choosing not to educate herself. She chooses not to budge on her stances and instead doubles down on them. She chooses to associate herself with the people who share this worldview and cut out the ones who don't. She chooses to use her influence to push a very anti-trans agenda. This is what her actions have done. I don't think it's about ignorance. I think it's about genuine malice. And it's something that other people in power feel emboldened to say thanks to her. Of course, you might be thinking, given all of this, is it wrong to still like Harry Potter? And to those people I say, firstly, your priorities are very warped. Secondly, why bother with Harry Potter when you now have Little Witch Academia and the Owl House? Thirdly, well, it's certainly in poor taste to officially support it at this point. Of course, this is a question that has long preceded this particular vat of hot nonsense. People have been debating the ethics of supporting media created by problematic people for quite some time. A popular name to evoke in this discussion is H.P. Lovecraft, who pretty much set the standard for the existential horror genre while being an unapologetic racist. Hashtag Google Lovecraft's cat. The thing is though, Lovecraft is a poor comparison to make in this case because he's already dead and his works are public domain. Rowling, by contrast, is very much alive and still using her money and influence to actively affect government policy regarding trans people. You're not putting anyone at risk for reading an old book about the Elder God like you are putting money in Rowling's pocket. Sure, boycotting Harry Potter or just pirating its content won't bankrupt her. It's hardly going to make a dent in anything other than her ego. But honestly, I think that's more than worth it. I don't hold the opinion that someone will ever change Rowling's mind about her transphobic idiocy. Try as they might. Nor do I see any of us potentially ruining her career for telling her that her outdated worldview is full of crap. I just want to make it as difficult as possible for her to keep saying this kind of stuff or doing these kind of monstrous things and expecting to get away with it. She'll dig her heels in, she'll double down, but she'll think twice before opening her trap and not expecting blowback. And when she first makes a public appearance after this pandemic, only to see people in the crowd chanting "trans women are women," I'm going to be one happy camper. But hey, that's just one cynical trans lesbian's opinion.
You sound like you've been holding that in for a while.
Oh, yes I have. Anyway, back to you. I'm gonna head home and just drown myself in Lumity fan art. Toodles!
Overall, I think there are still positive ways to have a relationship with Harry Potter and its fandom, while still actively condemning Joanne's lifestyle.
Duh! Away with you.
Daniel Radcliffe can't actually stop being remembered for those movies, am I right? From what I understand about the case, Joanne is incorrectly using trauma and unfavorable interactions with cis men to overstate her understanding of issues that she doesn't really understand. As far as your relationship with Harry Potter, it depends if you can have a personal distance from Rowling and how this affects your reading of the text. Not all people are acknowledging it, but a person's relationship with the source material can be personal and interpretive, hence why we have all these different interpretations of it. like the Bible and biblical angels, for instance. Any new Harry Potter anything is going to be under the radar due to how big this issue has gotten. Like the new video game that has gotten explicitly delayed. Womp womp. So my belief is eventually someone is going to put Joanne in the timeout corner, as people outside her are feeling these financial effects, and it's making it increasingly hard to market any Harry Potter anything. This does not seem like it's blowing over soon, like if all these counter statements are anything to go by. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to my trans friends and fans to tell you that we love you and you are valid. I'll leave some good trans-related charities below if you'd like to check them out. Give them money or learn how to get involved with the links below. You are valid.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please remember to leave a comment and share this with a friend or 2 or 5. Click here to subscribe, we really appreciate it. Click here to check out the main collaborator for this video. Click here to check out our video playlist for this video, where you might find similar videos that hopefully you like and enjoy. There's also a credits scroll here, where you can check out all the other awesome contributors. All their info is in the description. That's all I gotta say, KPOA!